we're doing a little fast politics talking fed mashup. Harry Letman.
Molly Jong Fast, what a day we chose for our latest Molly mashup.
How much sleep did you get last night?
It's a fair question. 4 or 5 hours. It was a late night, and I had stuff till the early morning, and then just kind of bolted upright on a beautiful New York day. So I could have slept in a little more, but some kind of residual excitement or something for the day before.
So let's talk about what happened. We are talking about the Trump verdict, which came at 4:15 on a Thursday when everyone thought that the jury was about to be sent home. First of all, let's just quarterback on ourselves. You and I both have been talking about this on television, but you much more than me because you obviously are a lawyer and know how to do this. What did you think? I mean, did you think this was going to happen? Were you surprised? And more broadly, I want you to sort of talk to us about what you thought when it came in and what you thought when you heard it.
I was not surprised. They had told us they were going home for the day, so I would have expected a verdict on Friday. But it is the verdict I expected. It's the verdict that at the time, or maybe even in retrospect, seemed inexorable from the evidence, but really props to the DA. They really took the tangled story that could have been played as a hush money case and constructed a narrative of election interference that just had a through line from Pecker to Cohen and seemed really cogent and featured a few witnesses that could be assailed, like so many witnesses in a criminal case in New York. Not just Cohen, but, Pecker is quite the character, Stormy Daniels. But each of them, this was the great thing about being in the courtroom, the juries make credibility determinations based on the overall sense. And, it's a really human thing to kind of take the measure of a witness and are they telling the truth? And I think they were, and that came across. And so I wasn't surprised at the verdict, including that they ran the table. I do want to say, though, the DA, I won't say they made it look easy, but the preparation gap was just enormous. Steinglass got up and he went too long, sure, but knew he had practiced it from the overall contours to the sentences and had pauses and drama and coherence. And really the defense, who I think you may know this better than I, there's some kind of backstory of real bickering among them. They didn't have any kind of narrative, and that was part based on the evidence and part, I think they didn't really ever bear down on a story they could present. That's a shorthand version.
What I thought as a non-lawyer was the same thing as what you just said, which is, and again, I am not a lawyer. I don't even have a college degree. I have a master's of fine arts. So few people are less competent.
Not true. That's the jury system.
But what I noticed, what I was surprised by was this was a case where a lot of us in the media industrial complex had misgivings. And then when they brought out David Pecker, I was like, wow, this guy really just has Trump dead to rights. And then you had Hope Hicks weeping on the stand because she knew she had him dead to rights. And then you had Madeline Westerhouse on the stand going like, this is what this is, and everyone being like, wow. And then you had Trump's lawyer attacking Stormy Daniels and opening the door for a whole thing that didn't even have anything to do with the case. And so I was the same. I was shocked at what a good job the prosecution did. Not shocked, but I was impressed. And then I was really shocked at what a bad job. I mean, Trump is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on legal fees. And what was clear, and Todd Blanche said this on television later, was that, in fact, Trump had basically told him everything he had to do.
Everyone noted what a big problem you had. He didn't just meander in his closing. They went after, if you notice, their big point was these records are not false. Michael Cohen actually performed these legal services. Are you kidding me? And just in general, not only lack sort of pop and kind of overall, it's less a lawyer's than a storyteller's art, but they made so many bad choices. Let me talk to you about the verdict from your sort of vantage point, because, you wrote in your op-ed, Trump's hush money guilty verdict is only going to make him more dangerous. That in the aftermath we knew was coming. That has everything to do with his habit of lying for his political gain, that Trump was always going to try to use candidate Trump to help defendant Trump. Surely true. And any verdict was destined to be molded into his brand and narrative of persecution, witch hunts, and a fight against the political system. Also clearly true. But do you think in other instances, it's things that seem so meaningful and pivotal just kind of receded? Do you actually think that he's going to leverage the verdict to fight against the political system, and he'll be railing about this in September when he could just hope that time would put enough in the distance that he could do the rest of his playbook?
Trump world desperately wants you to believe that. Right. This is a guy, and I'm going to quote Will Hurd here. He announced a week after the midterms because he hoped that it would keep him from being indicted. So it has always been a play about Trump not going to jail. So what Trump desperately wants, what Trump world desperately wants, is for you and the justice system and the 3 other cases which are waiting to go forward and may never go forward because Trump has been able to use all this donor money to punt these cases. What Trump desperately wants is for people in the pundit complex to say it's baked in, voters know, they don't care that he's done crimes. That's what Trump wants. And that's what Mitch McConnell wants. And that's even what Susan Collins wants. Concerned moderate Susan Collins also wants you to not believe that any of this matters, because nihilism helps autocracy. And Trump is an autocrat.
Nicely put. We need a button for that. Okay.
Trump is an autocrat. And all Trump wants is for people to say, doesn't matter, don't care. And the reality is we have seen, and again, I fucking hate polls, but we have seen polls that say that swing voters in Wisconsin don't want to vote for a criminal. And they don't like this. And the idea, look, Trump has only won one election, 2016. Since then, he has lost every election. He has never tried to grow the base. Like, if you just think of this, like the idea that Trump is constantly trying to get pundits to think in 3-dimensional chess is really so fucking stupid. That's all I could say. I was going to make a larger case about how autocrats work, but the truth is, it's fucking stupid.
Okay, and how does that translate? So it's a canard. Great, give me the conviction. But do you think that means in practical terms, Molly, that he will do a pivot from this and try to ignore it? Or do you think he'll be beating his breast about this the whole time? That's his strategy.
Yeah, because first of all, remember, Trump has for this entire time thought that being a defendant helps him. And he's thought that. I mean, I really do think Trump, there's so much bullshit here and so many conservatives lying about stuff. But I actually do believe that Trump believes being a defendant helps him.
Well, and his polls went up during the trial. So you think that's legit?
Stop. That's not true. His polls did not go up during the trial. His polls were pretty much static. And during the incredible primaries where Trump ran against mini versions of him who had no other leg to stand on except he's our guy and we're not as interesting as he is, then he did well. But that is the Republican base, which is, again, a brainworms contingent of the American public.
Yeah. All right. But so you're saying he wants people to, but this will actually be a feature, not something to put to the side of the campaign. He'll beat his breast all the way through about New York and Biden and I'm your martyr.
Trump ran against American democracy. You'll remember, even when he lost in 2020, it's a fixed system. It's a rigged system. He was saying that even before he won in 2016. This guy is an autocrat. He wants to degrade and attack American institutions. So he's going to run against the courts. But, a person with that much legal trouble needs to run against the courts. And remember, for him, this all works out great because either way, he uses that campaign money for lawyers, right? He doesn't have to pay $100+ million in legal fees, not coming out of the Trump family irrevocable trust. And I think that is a really important point.
By the way, I wouldn't say great in the sense that the end game might be, if he doesn't win, confinement for the rest of his natural life. But, it's a real risk.
No, but it's still, he was going to have that confinement
I see.
either
Okay.
way.
Yeah,
So
fair
running for
enough.
office just gave him free money for lawyers. And I would say that I would be shocked if he didn't try to run in 2028.
Wow. Wow.
Why wouldn't he? It's like there's no incentive not to. If you can use this money for lawyers, why wouldn't you just keep running until you die?
So we keep asking, is there Trumpism after Trump? But instead there's Trump after Trump. Holy cow.
I mean, I do think there's Trumpism after Trump.
And it's named Donald Trump. Okay, what you got? Bring it.
How are they going to keep this jury safe?
Yeah, there's no great answer from the criminal justice system. They are not going to go into witness protection program, et cetera. I have to think, are they really the villains in the eyes of the MAGA faithful, even the crazy MAGA faithful, the kind of, lone wolf who went in and shot up the Cincinnati FBI? I wouldn't be surprised. That was like half the kind of subtext, wasn't it, of don't put him in jail, that maybe they come after you. It's folly to think that their identities won't be known by people who want to diligently do it. So the short answer, I come up, when terrorism age, I was a U.S. attorney, and judges would say, what happens if some crazy person wants to come and terrorist and blow us up? And the answer really was, well, then they'll blow you up. I think it will reduce to a marginal risk. I don't see why they would be the target, but there's no way that, forget criminal justice, the entire justice system can 100% prevent it. Now, of course, they could 100% go after. It would be a very serious crime. So it's the same kind of disincentive as how do you keep a judge or a U.S. attorney? We used to have martial protections, et cetera. But I have no good answer for you.
They can't send them home with security.
Sure. Oh, no. When I say good answer, I mean full. How are they going to keep them safe? I mean, literally, if Trump world, what they want to do is
start doxing them or something.
That's all I'm saying. Of course, they're the equivalent of double locks on the door and burglar alarms and buzzers and stuff. But I think that the literal answer to your question is they can't. They can reduce the risk. And, these guys could leave New York, but no one's hopefully going to do that. I just think that during these few weeks, there's been a few of our peers who have been distinguished by the glowers they seem to draw personally from Trump and the personal messages. It's kind of a resume builder. But there's been real questions among our peers. Are we in danger? I don't put myself in that category. And the short answer is, look, if some crazy person hears from channels with aluminum foil the voice of Donald Trump saying, go kill Molly Jong fast.
All right. Let's just cut that out. Can we just cut that out? We don't need to tempt fate here. You go. Okay, ask me a question. Go.
So I'm really intrigued. You said you fucking hate polls, and I do too, but I also think but we as a kind really don't fucking understand polls, and we're going to learn a lot about it, just social scientists, over the next several years, but especially this whole problem that it seems like all the action for Trump is at the level of social media and things that just don't actually register in the typical polls. But you said, I'm talking now about your piece, really great piece, by the way, the Vanity Fair piece. Everybody check this out, The Panic of the Polls. But anyway, you said, look, Nikki Haley's zombie campaign still getting more than 10% of the vote. Biden seems to be polling better among those who are likely to actually show up. But just, I want to zero in on the point that the polling industry just doesn't seem to have the real precision of access to, as you put it, people's political persuasions and habits that tech companies do. So, are the pollsters, you think, overestimating MAGA members' commitment to actually showing up for their guy? Does that lessen? I don't think we can calibrate it yet, but do you think in general it points toward hidden good news for Biden?
Yeah. So this is what I would say. Yes, pollsters have a big problem.
This is actually a good question you were going to say.
No, well, it's actually something I spend a lot of time thinking about. So pollsters don't have a great pulse on what's happening. But what's happening here is actually something different. So in 2016, and again, pollsters will tell you they weren't wrong, but they were wrong. They were really, really, really wrong. They were wrong. And from that, they extrapolated Hillary Clinton has a 99.9% or an 89% chance of winning.
And then during the evening, 80, 70, you watch like the oxygen level dropping. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a real polling error. And since then, what they've done, and part of the reason that was a polling error, not to make excuses for them, but this was not their fault, was that Trump voters were a group of low frequency voters who you couldn't poll because you didn't think they existed. And that was what Kellyanne Conway said about these hidden Trump voters. They were hidden because they weren't voters. They were just people who usually didn't vote, but Trump had this populist message, which they responded to. And that happened in 2016. And that also happened in 2020. But it doesn't happen in the midterms. Those people don't come out for anyone else. Trumpism does not scale. So, maybe you win a primary, but like a really good example is J.D. Vance in Ohio, ruby red state, running, Trumpy Trump, a Trumposaurus, running 10 points behind the partisan lean, because ultimately it doesn't work for anyone else. It only works for Trump.
Yeah, I mean, in Ohio, the guy who lost, just a friend of mine, lost to DeWine, had more votes than anybody has ever had. But DeWine, somehow these hidden Trump voters came out and just new voters put DeWine over the top. Same thing with Vance.
Right. But usually that doesn't happen.
Right.
And Vance still ran behind the partisan lane. So what I would say is that my guess is what these pollsters are doing, and Nate Cohen wrote very smartly about this in the Times. They're trying to estimate whether or not this group comes out. I think they will come out. But the question is because, remember, 1 million Americans died of COVID. And even if, I know that was 3 years ago, so no one remembers, but that was 1 million people. And so maybe a lot of those people were older. It doesn't matter if your grandmother refused to get vaccinated and then died of COVID. Do her 5 grandchildren run out and vote for Trump? It's an open question. Maybe they think COVID is a, racist. Maybe they have some racist way to make it work for them, but you could see that could actually theoretically hurt him. But the other thing that I think is really still possible, it's just really hard to square what these unpredictable voters will do. And if you look at the bottom of the ticket, which I think is really where the action is happening, these Democratic senators are running way ahead.
Yeah.
I saw Tammy Baldwin running 12 points ahead in swing state Wisconsin. So I think there's some sorcery going on in trying to measure these Trump voters. I have a lot of trouble imagining a voter coming out, voting for Tammy Baldwin and then voting for Trump. Not impossible, but feels like a stretch.
Yeah, Molly, as always, I think we cover what you cover from the sort of daily to the more profound national trends, and really the things that are both. Sorcery is such a perfect word for what seems to be going on. Presumably the magic will reveal itself not to be magic, but right now I'm not sure how and why. So that'll keep me biting my nails for the next 6 months.
And you and I both agree that we don't know what we don't know, and we'll know a lot more in November.
There's an end. Look forward to the next Molly mashup. Thanks a lot, and a big week.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.